Welcome once again to the Cow Report, and of course I am your host, Chuck Lee, and with me as usual, and has been now for, what is it now, Fred, going on 20-25 years you've been on the show now?
I think it even seems longer than that.
Fred, the true Stafford. Well, glad to see you back, and you're getting chipper again, Fred. It must be getting springtime.
Hello there.
Glad to see you now. Are you...
Welcome to our viewers.
And boy, have we got a lot to talk about tonight, Fred.
Yeah.
As usual, there's a lot going on, and
Right.
we want to make sure we talk about it. And I need to get my glasses on because, you know, Fred, even though it's dark outside, it's almost like Florida in here, because boy, the lights get bright,
Yes,
don't they?
they do.
I know you've walked out of here with a Florida tan that all the girls admire, Fred.
Oh, I don't think that's true.
Okay, Fred, well, like I said earlier, we're glad to see you're back, and you know, Fred, we got some free gifts to give away tonight. Of course, this is not a lottery. These are just little freebies that we have left over that we'd like to give away. And so, Fred, what's going on there with that hat now? Are you selling
No, I'm
shares
not.
to some bank or something?
Nope.
Okay, it's a nice hat, though.
My brother-in-law gave me a number of these hats. He worked for the M&I Bank in Madison.
All right, okay, all right. Well, Fred, you know, there's some hot news coming out of Eau Claire. We've been hearing all these rumors about Planned Parenthood, and they're cranking up to start killing babies here in town. And we've been spared that disastrous event here in Eau Claire for about 10 years now, Fred. But
Right.
Evidently, they think by bringing abortions back to Eau Claire, it's going to help improve the quality of life around here and make it a better place for people to move into, because they'll just love to come to Eau Claire, because on all the brochures that Eau Claire sends around the country trying to get factories and stuff to come in Eau Claire, you know, Fred, they can put it right in their brochures that they offer abortions. Won't that be nice?
I don't think so.
Well, they seem to think so.
I think it'll be a disaster.
Well, Fred, they are gearing up for it. The latest rumor has it that they've hired a doctor to start performing them, if they aren't already performing them. And also, they've got this great big security camera they put out at the front door now, Fred. One of them great big heavy-duty metal jobs, several $1,000s for it probably. So it appears like they're gearing up and going full steam ahead to start killing 8, 9, 10-month-old babies here, Fred. Well, they wouldn't kill 10-month-old because they'd be out of the womb, but if they can kill them at 8 months, 3 weeks and 6 days and 23 hours, they'll try it, won't they?
Could be.
Now, some I know out in Wichita, Kansas, they killed them right up till within a few hours of a natural birth, they would abort them. Well, anyway, Fred.
We're going to have Right to Life is going to have a meeting in Altoona at St. Mary's Auditorium or gym on March 13th, which is Monday, at 7 p.m.
Well, you know, Fred, it's not good for a city to do what they're planning on doing here, because it makes us all guilty of murder,
I know.
whether we like it or not.
Almost seems like we're going the way of the Roman Empire that fell because of their evil deeds.
And you know, Fred, what's even sadder is we have the state of Wisconsin giving these people money to do what they're doing now. Maybe the state says our hands are clean because we're not giving the money specifically for abortions, but it's kind of like giving a drunk a $10 bill when he's got another $10 bill already in his pocket, and he says, if you give me a $10 bill, I won't get drunk on your money. Well, he can take his own $10 bill and replace it with yours, put it in his own pocket, and sure, he hasn't used your money to get drunk, but he's used his own $10 to get drunk. But it's all in the same pocket, Fred. It's the same money. They might, through fancy bookkeeping and stuff, they might say they're not using taxpayers' money to abort babies, but that's exactly what they're doing, Fred. And we have 2 state legislatures that are supposedly pro-life right here in Eau Claire. One of them's Dave Zien, and the other one's Rob Krybeck. And hopefully you'll continue to call them and let your voice be heard on the abortion issue, whether you're for it or against it. Let them know about that. Don't you think that's a good idea, Fred, that they should call Zien and Krybeck?
Oh, that'd be good.
Put the heat on it? How about the governor?
Right. Let them know, too.
If you don't want abortions, come to...
You know, either you stand up for God You're either with them or you're against them. There's no neutrality in this fight.
Well, Fred, they already had their headlines. Abortions may be provided locally. Planned Parenthood officials discuss security with police. Well, they wouldn't be going to all this trouble just to hand out birth control pills, Fred.
No.
So, now, once again, when is that meeting, Fred?
It's on Monday, the 13th of March at 7 p.m. in St. Mary's auditorium or gym, whatever they call that there in the school.
And
That's in Altoona.
And that's open to anybody that's
Yes.
against.
And they would like to have the people turn out.
It's open to anybody and everybody that's against bringing an abortion
We
clinic
need
to
their
Eau Claire.
help in deciding what to do about this evil
Yes.
proposal.
So whether they're Democrat or Republican or liberal or conservative, if they're against abortion, they should show up for that meeting, right?
Right on.
Okay, all right. Well, Freddie, you know we like to give away gifts on the show here, and we try to ask questions, but we kind of prime the audience by asking you first, Fred, because you are the expert on what happened on this date in history, Fred. And please be patient on the phones. We will get you. I know you're backed up 10 deep, but that's one of the things you have to cope with when you're dealing with a hit show like this, Fred. If they want to talk to a man with as much knowledge as you or with me, they have to wait in line, Fred. And so we'll be taking your calls here in a couple minutes. But in the meantime, Fred, we wanted to ask you a question to see if you can continue your batting average of 1,000. You're still the only baseball game in town after, what is it, 200 and some days now of the baseball strike. You can always see a baseball game right here on the Cow Report when Fred answers these questions. And you're still batting 1,000, aren't you? Somewhere around that?
I don't know.
Okay. I'm glad you're on top of that. All right. Fred, on this date, March 6th, and it is a wonderful day out there except for the 7-8 inches of snow out there. It's kind of a nice day out there, Freddie.
Yeah.
Did you get around today out there in the snow and frolic, and did you go skiing or anything?
No way.
What were you doing out there?
Well, I went to see a few people today, and one of the people that I went to see didn't show up.
Ain't that the way it is, Fred? Okay, March 6th, Fred, 1836. Davy Crockett and Jim Bowie are killed by this Mexican general when they stormed the Alamo, a fortified mission building in what is now San Antonio. 1836, March 6th. What was the name of that general from Mexico?
Well, I can't remember his name, to be very frank with you. I should know it, too.
Huh, I should have gave you the general's name and then asked you who the guys were that got killed inside there. 1836, Fred, it wasn't that long ago. You should remember that.
I know.
About
50 years ago?
159 years ago? It ain't that long ago. Well, anyway, it was a Mexican general, Santa Anna.
And Santa Anna's right.
And several thousand of his troops stormed across the, they were kind of unsure where the border was then, but the Davy Crockett, Jim Bowie, and the boys decided to make a stand there in southern Texas. And said,
At Alamo.
At the Alamo, and they said, this is where we're going to make a stand for Texas, and they were overwhelmed after putting up a valiant fight. And as a matter of fact, Fred, right today they're excavating down there in some of the wells and stuff that were buried after that period in the Alamo, looking for artifacts from that battle. They found some musket balls and pottery and other things so far, and they're continuing to excavate down there. So that'll be interesting to see what they come out of there with. So anyway, we're going to be asking the callers tonight a question, and we have playing cards that have a picture of the elephant on them. If you get the answer right, this will be one of the prizes. The other one is an Impeach Clinton, retroactive to January of '93 bumper sticker, or the latest issue of the Christian American, a Christian review of the news. That's the March issue. So that's your three prizes tonight that you can choose from if you get the answers right. So Freddie, I think we'll go to a...
nice boy, but he's got more nerve than a bum, too.
I think we'll go to the telephones here, Freddie. And where'd you say, which line was it on?
1 and 2.
All right. Of course, we want to let you know this show is brought to you by the wonderful world of Flavin and the fine folks at the Flavin factory here in town, Fred.
Flavin Slop.
And they've been in business now for years.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
How you doing?
Fine.
I have to ask you some advice.
All right.
Because I know you're very smart. My girlfriend slept with another guy, and I'm wondering what you think I ought to do about it, man. I don't know. I think I'm just gonna bathe in the motherfucker's blood.
Okay, Freddie. Somebody there's a little bit distraught about their relationship. You know, that happens to young kids a lot, Fred. Since there's no moral footings anymore, anything goes. And they don't get the teaching they need to in the schools. If they're not going to a church somewhere where they hear about morality, Fred, and it's outlawed in the schools,
Well,
and the parents are split up, and there's
one of the things the churches should be talking about.
and if there's
And that's a failure on the part of church leaders.
Mhm. Well, Fred, what would you suggest to this young man that's thinking about doing some violence to his?
No, I wouldn't do it.
It's not really worth it. Is it?
If she is not going to be true, then
You know,
she-
Fred, there's an old saying: it takes two to tangle. Or
Right.
tango. So our advice to that young man is to just take a few deep breaths, cool off a little bit, and you don't want to end up like OJ sitting out there in jail waiting on a double murder, because they do have a life in prison penalty in this state, and if Dave Zien has his way, they'll have a death penalty in this state. So,
which should be a good
so
idea.
you could languish on death row for 10 or 12 years and then get fried. So you might want to think it over, that you've got your whole life ahead of you, and it's not worth doing violence over something like that, especially with somebody that is not going to be truthful to you. Because if she's not going to be that way now, what makes you think that with a marriage certificate or a wedding ring she's going to be any different after the wedding? So think those things over and take a break and just let her go. What's that old saying about just letting a butterfly go and it'll fly back to you and all that stuff, Fred? If you let it go, but if you try to hang on to it, you'll...
No, if something belongs to you, it will come back.
Yep. So that's our advice today, young man. Don't get carried away there. You got your whole life ahead of you. All right, Fred. Now, what do you got there today? I know you got something there you wanted to talk about.
Well, the Citizens Flag Alliance, I got a letter from William M. Detweiler of the American Legion. He says the scene was right out of the 60s. A radical protester ripping an American flag down from a building and burning it in the street. His arrest was immediate, but Gregory Johnson's act of protest won the endorsement of the Supreme Court. We need a law that would prohibit the desecration of the American flag. So write your senators, Cole and Feingold, and your congressman here in the 3rd District, Gunderson.
Okay, Fred, we're going to take another call. And first of all, I'm going to ask this question for the caller so that they can think about it for a second before we
Okay.
give it to them. On this date, March 9th, 1864. This man was named Commander-in-Chief of the Union forces during the Civil War. Against heavy criticism, President Lincoln says, "I like this man, he will fight." Who was that man that was named Commander-in-Chief of all Union forces
Should have asked me that one.
back in 1864, March 9th, to lead the Union troops into the Civil War? And I think we'll go to line number 2 or 1?
Was 2.
All right, let's see here. Okay, line 2. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hey, Chuck.
Hello.
I was just wondering, do you think there's going to be school tomorrow? Because Lee Hansen, he likes to make us go to school as much as possible, even if we do get 2 feet of snow.
You know, I heard he's trying to make people go to school even in their 30s and 40s. So you got to watch them out there. Matter of fact, I got something tonight about the I guess they're really up in arms over there at the school board meeting tonight because the governor says they're going to have to cut back, and they're really sweating bullets over there at the school board meeting because they're not going to have all that money to play with. They're going to have to cut back a little bit on the amount that they get to play with to buy these fancy office buildings and these multi-million-dollar school buildings. And,
Well, they won't have to have all these assistant principals and so forth?
yeah, and they might even have to cut back on some of all these vacations they're always fighting over, Fred. I hear it's really terrible down there in the summertime, these principals fighting over who's going to take the vacation first. And then the other thing is they're fighting about who gets to go out and play golf first.
Then the answer to your question, is it Ulysses Grant?
That's right.
Is it?
And Fred, who's buried in Grant's tomb anyway?
Ulysses Grant
Where's that at?
in New York City, in Manhattan.
I don't know how he ever
Right
ended
up
up in New
there
York.
by Central Park.
How in the world did Ulysses S. Grant end up in New York when he had a nice little house in Galena, Illinois?
Well, there's more people in New York than there were in Galena, Illinois then.
Yeah, well, caller, you get your choice of one of these three. Which one did you want, the bumper sticker, the deck of cards, or the Christian American newsletter?
Like the deck of cards.
Okay, now, you got to come down here and pick it up, and Fred here, if he's here, he'll give you
No,
a tour of the
I'm
Cow
not-
Report
I'm not
Studios.
going to be here.
Okay,
You'll have to give them the tour yourself.
this will be in the public access office. Just ask Sherry or Joel, and they'll give it to you. And next time you're down to the library, just come and get it.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you for calling. All right, Fred. Now, what was that you were talking about over there? What's that tape you got there, Fred?
It's a tape on MTV Examined. And we're going to show this on the 16th on our, at 6 o'clock on the Conservative Corner during our program between 6 and 7.
Now, who's going to be your first guest?
First guest is going to be Jerry Anderson, the president of Eau Claire Right to Life chapter.
You'll be discussing, of course, the abortionists that are trying to come to town.
Going to be talking about the proposed action and the meeting that takes place on the 13th.
Okay, so that'll be fresh. That'll just be a couple days after the meeting, so you'll have more of an idea of what the strategy is going to be to stave this off, and hopefully there'll be as much or more excitement about this as they got all burned up and excited about the Hartle Road deal.
Right.
And
Which is more serious. You know, there's one thing I noticed in the Hartle Road protest about his being housed on in a halfway house on Barstow Street, North Barstow Street. No mention was made by anyone. Why did he do these things? Did pornography promote it? Was that the thing that caused him to go off the deep end?
Could be. You know, speaking of pornography, Fred, it says here, Hillary Clinton says she has no guru, despite a claim by Esquire magazine that she has formed a friendship with New Age guru Marianne Williamson. Hillary Clinton insists she has not become a New Age devotee. I have no gurus, spiritual advisors, or any other New Age alternative to my Methodist faith and traditions, Hillary writes in a 2-page typed letter to the Esquire. The magazine reported that Williamson spent a night at the White House and that the two women had stayed in touch, quote unquote. But Clinton said that while it is factually true that she met Williamson, the conclusion is untrue. So that's so much of that, Fred. All right, Fred, well, I got an announcement about something that's coming up here, and I got a news release for it. And I think we'll take a call before we have this important news release about this issue that I've got here coming up, Fred. So you'll be interested in that. Okay. News release: La Crosse and Eau Claire TV special teaches kids how to have great sex. Sure, all you youngsters out there are going to pay attention to this. March 13th, Red, at 6:30 p.m. on Channel 25 here in Eau Claire, WLAX. I think that's the Fox affiliate here in town. I think it's Channel 3 or 4, isn't it, here in town?
3, I think.
Okay, anyway, this is put out by Focus on the Family. They have a videotape. I think it's a half-hour tape, and it will be about sex, lies, and the truth. It's a film produced by Focus on the Family and documents this radical return to self-respect and reproductive responsibility, and discusses why researchers find that waiting until marriage yields the most satisfying physical relationships. This is a no-holds-barred video, says Amy Stevens, youth culture specialist. No script, no politicking, we just went on the street and talked to kids. They're looking for solid answers, not adults content to give them an easy answer and a condom. We felt it was time to teach young audiences that the best sex and the safest sex is sex saved for marriage. That, once again, is this March 13th, 6:30 on Channel 25. That's your Fox network. I think it's Channel 3 or 4 here in Eau Claire.
3. It's not 4.
Okay, it's on at 6:30, so it's either on, it's on the La Crosse and Eau Claire channels, airing at the same time. And once again, this is put on by Focus on the Family, Fred. I guess it's had pretty good reviews from the Washington Post and the U.S. News and World Report. Okay, we're going to try and take a call here, Fred, once we get this. Did you get this fixed? Did you get that fixed, Roy? Okay. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, I have a comment about the abortion issue, but first, that caller that called about, how his girlfriend cheated on him.
Yeah?
Caller, I know you're mad, but, if she cheated on you, she's probably the very promiscuous type. And if you literally swam in the guy's blood, she may have had these sexually transmitted diseases that could eat away at you for the rest of your life if you got that in your body, and you'd regret that for the rest of your life. All right. And as far as abortion, how come you can't be neutral?
There is no neutral ground with murder. How can you be neutral about it?
Well, what if she got raped or something?
Well, Fred has handled that question many times, Fred. What if she got raped?
Well, she could bring the child into the world and put it up for adoption.
Oh.
So you're a strong proponent of more
Right.
adoption services.
And having had a daughter that had an abortion and has been troubled ever since, and been to, I don't know how many years she went to counseling, that she went through heck, lost jobs, was evicted from an apartment.
Yeah.
We had to pay the rent and also the security deposit for her.
Oh, I get it.
Okay, so caller, I got a question here for you.
I only wish that, in answer to that, I only wish that some of the pro-lifers were active at the time, and that was back in 1971. That was arranged through Planned Parenthood up in Minneapolis.
Was that an illegal abortion?
That was an illegal abortion.
Planned Parenthood.
Right. They sent her to the abortionist that they recommended up there.
Huh.
You have a question for me?
Yeah, on March 7th, 1876.
That's my birthday.
It is?
Yeah.
Huh, you must be getting pretty old. That's 19 years ago. Anyway.
Something like that.
Happy birthday there. Anyway, maybe let's see if you can win one of these free gifts here. The telephone is patented by who on March 7th, 1876?
Kimberly Schultz?
No?
Oh, all right. I have a comment for you. Your mom should have...
Okay, all right, Fred. We like to keep the program nice and clean. The answer to that question was, Fred?
Alexander Graham Bell.
That's right. I'm glad to see you're still batting 1,000, Fred.
I knew that.
I noticed. All right, Fred. Well, there's been a lot of discussion out there about tobacco, Fred. Evidently now down in New Orleans, U.S. District Judge Okla Jones II, it says anyone who has ever ignored a doctor's advice to quit smoking can join a class action lawsuit that accuses tobacco companies of manipulating nicotine levels to hook smokers. This is a federal judge says this. Anybody, Fred.
Mm-hmm.
This ruling just handed down a few weeks back is by Judge Okla Jones II. Means that as many as 50 million people would be eligible to join the lawsuit. according to the judge and lawyers.
Hmm.
The suit was filed by a smoker's widow and 3 current smokers who say they're unable to shake their addiction. They claim that tobacco companies covered up knowledge and that nicotine was addictive. And of course, R.J.R. Nabisco, who owns Reynolds Tobacco Company, they're all nervous about that, Fred. They got their cadre of lawyers trying to fight this off to make sure that it doesn't win, because if 50 million people can file lawsuits against the tobacco companies, that'd be pretty much wipe out the tobacco companies in the United States. They wouldn't be able to give people like Steve Gunderson PAC money and legal bribes to do their bidding in Washington. So there you have it, Fred. So what do you got over there before we take another call?
Well, I'm reading from the Wanderer, which is a Catholic lay paper up in St. Paul. Bishop Daley urges Catholics to pray at abortion mills. There are those who would ask if prayer is self-stimulus violence. How could prayer provoke violence? Violence is in the inside of the abortion clinic or hospital that calls for prayer. The powerful intercession of Mary, the Mother of God, the very divine power of God himself, is to move people from death to life. And he is the bishop in Brooklyn.
Well, that's good, Fred. Well, you know, Fred, this week the assault on Washington now, of course, you know what's happening. Newt Gingrich's half-sister, the homosexual sister that he's hid all these years, she's in Washington today and basking in the limelight of the cameras and everything, and her and Newt were pictured together with their little love fest, and of course you've got Steve Gunderson in there going around pushing his homosexual rights. So today was gay love fest day on Capitol Hill, and of course Newt has pretty much abandoned the contract on America now. He never did have his heart in it. Most internationalists that are going to sell out the country wouldn't have their heart in anything that would help the United States stay the great nation that it is. So you're seeing Newt crack. You're seeing all this phoniness of Newt and that he was a so-called patriot. All this stuff is cracking now before our eyes. He's giving up his so-called teaching class. He's went on public television over the weekend and asked everybody to donate money to public television when he was the one making the threats to take it off in the first place. And how ironic, Fred, to take the 200 or 300 million away from public radio and TV, and then shovel the money down to Mexico, $40 billion worth. He wanted to shovel that down there with no strings attached, and just a grand old time. We're just going to shovel $40 billion to Mexico, but let's chop off Big Bird's head and cook him.
Well, I think you ought to funnel some money to American manufacturers here so they could make some clothing and tools and other things that are being sold in our department stores but come from every place but the United States. You know, I went out looking for a winter jacket for myself this past weekend. I was unable to find a jacket made in the United States.
Bet you thought you were in some third world country shopping in those stores.
I can't tell you how many different countries, especially from Asia and in Central America, that had jackets.
Well, China's really dumping the stuff in here.
China had quite a few of them.
Okay, Fred. Something going along with what I said earlier here. The Log Cabin Club, which is the group that pushed Gunderson, it's a homosexual Republican group that's kind of muscled their way into the Republican Party and seem to be taking over some of the party apparatus, and especially in the Washington area. They're praising the switching of Colorado Senator Ben Nighthorse Campbell. They're praising him switching from Democrat to Republican. And here's what the national leader of the Log Cabin Republicans sent out a news release on March 3rd. It says, Colorado Senator Ben Nighthorse Campbell, a strong supporter of lesbian and gay equality, announced this morning that he had decided to switch to the Republican Party, a move which demonstrates the broadening of the GOP base. The formerly Democratic senator cited his support of the GOP's economic conservatism, particularly the balanced budget amendment, as a reason for his defection. And Richard Tafel, president of executive director of the Log Cabin Republican, says, "I want to congratulate Senator Campbell on his decision to join the Republican Party. He will be a valuable ally in the Republican Party for fiscal conservatism and gay and lesbian equality."
I hope that the reason he joined was to get away from that. He already had it in the Democratic Party. He should be at home there then.
Taffel concludes his news release by saying, "This is another example that shows that the Republican Party will continue to expand if it keeps the focus on core issues like the economy." So Fred, the sodomites are taking over the Republican Party. What are you going to do about it?
What am I going to do about it? I'll vote for other than those that support it.
Okay. Well, Pat Buchanan and Bob Dornan are out there.
Right.
They can't hardly stomach it either, but they still consider that the only way to go. They're hanging on by a thin thread, staying in the party, Fred. Neither one of them can stomach what's happening to it, but they're hoping that they can turn it around. I know there's a lot of Christians and conservatives and Roman Catholics that are just hanging on by a thread too, hoping that the party won't go any farther to the left, Fred, but it doesn't sound good out there.
No.
Well, what do you think, Fred? Should we take another call?
Sure.
All right, now, I already asked the one about Jim Bowie, didn't I?
Yes.
Elvis has left the building.
Okay, go ahead, caller. We already know that about Elvis. What else you got to talk about? Hello?
Oh,
Yes,
how you fellas doing tonight?
pretty good.
I have a question for you here. You guys have been tricky. I'm going to try to stump you too. On this day, March 9th, 1855, what happened at Niagara Falls?
What happened in Niagara Falls, 1855? Well, you know, Fred was over there. Fred was out in that part of the country back then. It's out by New York.
Not at that time. Probably somebody went over the falls in a barrel.
And probably lived.
No. Actually, what happened was the first locomotive crossed the suspension bridge. There, very first locomotive.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I thought I'd trick you guys. Well, I'll see you later. Bye.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Fred,
Yes.
what do you got there? Patrick Buchanan, you know, he's announcing, you know, he's given up everything, Fred. He's given up his
Yes.
syndicated column. He's left Crossfire, and he's left his radio show.
He's no longer writing his column either.
And you know, he got 37% of the vote in New Hampshire in '92, Fred, and he didn't even hardly try that hard.
He's a man who is a leader, and if we need anything, we need somebody who's morally qualified and knows the problems we face. You know, we're going the way of the Roman Empire, which is written up in The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire by Gibbons, and that is a terrific book. The same thing is going on here in our country.
Yeah, I know what you mean, Fred. Okay, for the next caller now. Well, I'm going to ask you this one, Fred.
Yes.
Since you know so much about the Texas-Mexican history. 1916, March 9th. This man had raids into New Mexico, killing several Americans, and the U.S. Army troops are commanded to locate and capture him. Who was this famous Mexican? They're still singing songs about him. I was down in southern Mexico 10 years ago, and they were still singing songs about this guy from 1916.
Wasn't Santa Anna, was it?
No.
No.
Pancho Villa.
Villa.
Pancho Villa.
Yeah.
Pancho Villa. And, of course, we got another one here. We're going to ask one of the callers here as soon as we can get it straightened up here. Well, I guess we don't need that caller, Fred. We'll have to go to the other line. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air. Hello. Hello.
Hello, Fred, or Chuck.
Yes.
Hey, we got to prep Fred up there a little bit better. I think you guys should switch hats and give him your glasses.
Why is that?
move him into the new times here.
Yeah, Freddie's kind of conservative, so you don't want to push him too far.
Well, we got to push them conservatives a little bit.
Yep.
Another question for you, or not a question, a comment.
All right.
Hey, was that call in like that? You should get that caller ID, and after they hang up, call them back.
Yeah.
That'd get their goal.
Yeah, we're working on that, and
I think that's a good idea too. That caller ID.
they'll get
Right.
a knock. They'll get a knock on the door from.
I know we've had phone calls here, you know, and nice to know who the heck's making those.
Yeah, well, we try to. This is a family program, so we try to keep everything as clean as possible. But once in a while, a few things slip through, and we hope it's no.
That's gonna make a lot of these people that do this stuff think twice, though. You know, with this new caller ID, because they can't be hidden anymore.
Well, there is a way of getting around it. I'm not going to tell how it is on the air, but
Oh, okay.
there are ways of.
Aren't you gonna ask me a question? I've been.
Yeah, we'll ask you one here. 1857. This case is decided by the Supreme Court on March 6th. The court rules that a slave cannot escape to a free state, then sue for freedom from his old master. This is a famous case about 3 years before the Civil War started. It was called the blank blank decision.
State versus somebody.
1857.
I don't know. Gotta be the state versus somebody.
In other words, if a slave could break loose from the South and get to a free state, then he couldn't sue his former master.
Got me.
The Dred Scott decision, 1857.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thanks a lot for calling in. Okay, Fred, you know, we're always hearing stories about these power lines out there and how it affects people, Fred. And
Yes.
stray electricity affects the cattle and stuff. Well, there's some scientists that have said now that power lines, there's a link to brain cancer, Fred, through power lines. Long-term exposure to power lines appears to slightly increase the risk of brain cancer, but not leukemia. So you want to be mindful of that if you're hanging around underneath the power lines, Fred.
Okay,
Take a break.
I'm not going to hang around underneath the power lines.
Okay, well, what do you got there, Fred?
Well, I was just looking at something here that the Conservative Book Club has sent out, and hundreds of classic moral stories to help shape your child's character and taste for good reading. And this book is written, or called The Book of Virtues by William J. Bennett. The $27.50 book. It's available free if you sign up to become a member, and you take a couple of books a year. Also, other volumes that are available, who are the two boldest columnists writing today. And this is Thomas Sowell, Inside American Education, which incidentally is an excellent book, and A Jewish Conservative Looks at Pagan America. That can be gotten, and both books are $44.94 retail. They also have the Rush Limbaugh book, #1 bestseller, available, and that's a $24 book available if you become a member. Or what does this differ from every other handbook on our government? Basic American Government, and that's a $32.95 retail value. That's available by signing up and becoming a member of the book club.
Huh. Sounds like some pretty good value.
I wish I could get some of those.
You already belong to that, don't you?
I belong to it, but I belonged to it for years.
Well, we're going to try and take it
Go
out.
ahead. Make my day.
Well, we won't take that call, Fred. Let's take a different one here. All right, Fred. Before we take this call, though, I wanted to let you know, Fred, that did you know, Fred, that 1 in 6 Americans has had a sexual disease, an STD?
Oh boy.
1 out of 6. It's getting pretty much narrowed down there. 1 in 6 Americans has had a sexually transmitted disease at some time, according to a major study of sexual behavior presented Friday. University of Chicago researchers who interviewed about 3,500 adults found that 16% of the men and 18% of the women said they had been diagnosed with an STD during their lifetime. About 10% of the men in the sample and about 9% of the women report some element of homosexuality in their adult lives, such as sexual feelings or behavior towards people of their own sex. Less than half of those people, however, would define themselves as gay, lesbian, or bisexual. Children in single-family and step-parent families were roughly twice as likely to experience adult-child sex, Fred. So it sounds like there's some problems in that area. Typically, the adult involved was male, and 93% of our respondents reported that they knew the adult before sexual contact occurred. The researchers analyzed data from interviews conducted in 1992 with adults age 18 to 59, and that's quite alarming, Fred. 1 out of 6 Americans have or have had an STD.
Well, when you play around, all kinds of things may happen.
It makes you wonder, them guys that hang around the dirty bookstores, Fred, and then come home to their wives. What they're bringing home to their wives. Their wives ought to be asking them what they're bringing home. Okay, go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
How you doing?
All right.
Chuck.
Yeah.
How are you doing, man?
Pretty good.
Yeah, I like that head of yours.
Thank you. I got that. We got that special delivery from California. They're out on the strip out there. I guess they're selling like hotcakes out there. Of course, you know, everything that's in California eventually makes its way out east, so you'll probably see these all over the streets this summer.
That's cool. I have 2 things to say.
All right.
Okay, Chuck, you're a man. Fred, Suzanne thinks you're an ass.
Is that same Susan they were talking about earlier, Fred?
I don't know.
Yeah, somebody must be mad at you, Fred. I guess when you tell the truth, they get mad at you. You know it?
Well,
I guess they get mad at you, Fred. We can't take that call. That guy wouldn't even speak English. All right, Fred, what do we got here? Smuggling immigrants risky but lucrative, a Mexican says. And it's got a picture of three Mexicans that do nothing but smuggle Mexicans across the border, and they get paid for it, Fred. And of course, you know, we've been talking about for years now about how we would like to see them get control of our southern border so that they can call us the United States again. Until they get control of our southern borders and our other borders, Fred, this is not the United States of America. And of course, that would suit people like Newt Gingrich and others just fine, because they want to turn this into an international dumping ground for everything anyway, Fred. They talk great in Washington, but when you read between the lines and you see what they're really up to when they wanted to throw that $40 billion to Mexico, you know that they're really more concerned with the international bankers and how they look to some potentate.
The money is going to go to the international bankers to pay what they loan them. And if the international bankers made a loan, they should have gotten some security and take the security.
Well, you know, Fred, this one guy was bragging that he's 28 years old, and in 5 years he personally has smuggled 3,000 people across the border, and they usually get close to $300 a head. And of course, if they're smuggling drugs along with it, they get a little extra on the side from that too. So isn't that nice, Fred?
Yes.
This one guy said here, we can make as much as $1,000 a week. And he's building himself a house in Tijuana for his wife, daughter, and son. And he says his wife doesn't know what he's doing. That was just 3 of the, they call themselves burros, or coyotes, Fred.
Mm-hmm.
Human smugglers. Quite a racket down on the southern border, Fred. Of course, we're paying for it in this country. All right, now what was that deal you had there, Fred?
Well, I have a little something here, a petition to our local cable system and franchising authorities to remove MTV. It's a petition. The American Family Association here in Eau Claire will be discussing that at their next meeting.
Yeah.
And MTV is well, all you have to do is look at it and you know what they show. And I have had a block on my TV. I didn't want my children or grandchildren to look at what they were showing on that station.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Well, you know, Fred, That reminds me. Over there at, you know the old fairgrounds here in town? It never was big enough to do much anything in.
Yeah.
Kind of on the side of a hill, and part of it was taken up by a baseball diamond. And there never has really been a decent fairgrounds in Eau Claire County. So they finally sold off those old buildings in the 23 or 4 acres down there for around $600,000 to Mega Foods. I guess they're going to build a new fancy shopping center over there or something. I'm sure they'll make quite a thing out of it there, but you know.
They're also buying the Highland Mall if they can.
Well, you know, Fred, would have been nice instead of taking that money and dumping it into this fairgrounds way out on the south side of town. Why not take the $600,000 and put it back in the general treasury, and then give the taxpayers a reduction here in town?
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they just swallowed that $600,000 up and decided to take more while they were at it.
You know,
that's our county board of work.
when we had the Highland Mall that was operated by the co-op, they had some good clothing and whatnot in there, and I bought some of that clothing, and incidentally it was made in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Okay, go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you, Chuck?
Pretty good, how are you?
Well, good. I have a couple of comments to make. The first one is about the fairgrounds.
Yeah.
County board don't vote on that till tomorrow.
They don't?
No.
Well, that's good.
And the second, another one is, when is that? Where's that meeting at about that petition of MTV?
Well, the American Family Association will have to have a meeting in the next couple of weeks and discuss what action is going to be taken by them.
You'll probably announce it on your show on the 16th, maybe?
Well, if we have, that's Thursday. I don't know if we'll have a meeting that fast, but we'll announce it on your show 2 weeks from now.
Well, I got a show next week at 2 o'clock.
I know we'll have one in between the next 2 shows.
Yeah. Okay, caller, does that help you out any?
Yep. And plus, I have one more question. What's that hat?
Well, these are the latest thing coming out of California now on Rodeo Drive, and you'll probably see if you've been watching the O.J. Simpson trial on CNN, you probably see some of the people in the audience wearing them. I guess they're really hot on the West Coast, and of course, by this summer you'll probably see them in every store here in Eau Claire, probably Kmart and Walmart. All of them will be selling them.
Oh, is that a snake or something like that?
Yeah, some kind of snake skin or something. I got it just before the show started, so I'm admiring it too.
Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, well, you want to win something here, huh?
Sure.
Okay. How'd you know about that board meeting tomorrow night?
Well, my dad's on the county board.
Uh-oh. Which way is he going to vote on that deal?
I'm not sure. I haven't asked him yet.
Okay, maybe you can lobby him. All right, here. Let's see what we got here. Here's a tough one for you. If you were born a few years ago, you might know this. March 7th, 1945.
Okay.
American forces crossed this river, tightening the noose on Hitler's Nazi regime. World War II. Almost before the end of the war, Fred. March of 45, things were starting to wind down, weren't they?
Oh.
It's a famous river right there in Germany.
I don't know.
Well, starts with an R, ends with an E.
The Rhine?
Yep. How'd you guess?
I had some good help.
Okay, well, we got, which one? I don't know what that guy took, Fred. Did he take the bumper sticker or the cards?
Took the card.
We got this bumper sticker, Impeach Clinton, retroactive from 93, or we got the latest issue of Christian American.
Okay, sure, that.
Okay, you'll have to come down to the library and get it. We'll keep it here for a week, and if it's not gone, we'll give it away next week.
Okay, thank you.
And that's in the basement between 10 and 5. You can pick it up here at Public Access Office.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Have a good
for
day.
calling. Okay, goodbye.
Bye.
I think on Wednesday they're not open those hours.
Yeah, something like that, Fred. Well, Fred, you know, Clinton's has ordered an affirmative action review, Fred.
Yes.
We've been talking about that for years on this show, about affirmative action and how it's been discriminating against if you're white and of European descent, you're pretty much at a disadvantage in this country for the last 30-some years because of this affirmative action. And what affirmative action done is guaranteed that a handful of radical blacks and feminists like Jesse Jackson and those types have been able to get federal monies to prop up their personal lifestyles and continue to push their phony rhetoric about discrimination stuff, keep themselves fat and driving the Cadillacs, Fred. But it really hasn't helped the minorities that they were supposed to help. We've got more poverty now than we've ever had in this country after 35 years of 30 years or whatever of affirmative action and programs like that and war on poverty. It just hasn't worked. So hopefully between Clinton and Gingrich and the leaders in Washington, they will scrap that unfair program and do like Martin Luther King said, Fred. He called on everyone to be equal, and that's what's in the Constitution and Declaration of Independence about equality, not putting one group above another and causing class hatreds and race warfare and all that kind of stuff. When you make everyone truly equal, then they've got no reason to be mad at each other. There's a lot of friction on this issue, Fred. There's some lawsuits starting to show up now, and I guess the judges are finally taking a serious look at this reverse discrimination and what affirmative action has really done.
Oh, that's good.
Yep. It's amazing how long it took for them to finally realize that it's just kept a handful of radical leftists well off, and it's kept the rank and file of the minorities in poverty and on welfare. What good is it if you just keep a whole class of people on welfare, Fred? How's that helping them?
That's probably hurting them.
That's right.
In the long run.
Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, hi Chuck, how you doing?
Hello.
I know what a perfect job would be for you. If anybody wanted to have an abortion, you could like be the judge, and if they could convince you that it was right for them to have one, you could make the final decision.
Okay, and if I'm sick that day, can Fred take my place?
No problem. Hey, do you have another question?
Yeah, let's see here. We got one more thing to give away. We still got a bumper sticker. That's all we got left on tonight's show. Let's see here. Yeah, we got one here. It's going to be a pretty tough one. 1902, this bureau was created to count people in this country. What's it called?
Oh, I know the answer. The answer is your fucking mom should have.
Well, you missed that one, Fred. Well, you know, Fred, that's another fine example of the educational system here in town. Now, what's the, just got the figures here tonight. Per pupil, current per pupil cost, $6,112. Isn't that wonderful, Fred?
Yes.
And if you go to a store and try and make change with some of these people, they definitely didn't take math in school. Either that or the math is so screwed up, there's new math and stuff nowadays. They about cry if they have to break a $50 bill or a $20. If you got something there, Fred,
Yes. You got from the...
think this was made over there, Fred? In one of them foreign countries?
I don't know. In Newswatch...
There you go.
Newswatch, which is... Washington Watch, is put out by the Family Research Council in Washington, and they have a little article on Barneygate. Pro-family advocates have been crying for years without success to reform government-sponsored culture programs such as the National Endowment of Arts, NEA, and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Yet, despite these efforts, both of those organizations continue to pour millions of taxpayer dollars into obscene, blasphemous, anti-family pieces, or projects, I should say. The only way to bring accountability to these agencies is to privatize them.
That's for sure. Now, who's going to do that, though?
Well, it's up to us.
Now, what newsletter is that, Fred? Is that something new you're getting?
Oh, I've been getting this from the Family Research Council, the Washington Watch, and it comes out every month. And there are a number of items that bring you up to date on what is going on pro-family projects.
Okay, caller, you're on the air.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
I just had a question for you here. Do you feel that minority scholarships are in actuality reverse discrimination?
Yeah, if they have different standards for getting them than other people.
Yeah. See, I've always felt this way, being a younger middle class white male, trying to make my way through college, and just seeing that that there are actually other white males like myself are being discriminated against just on the basis of race. I think that if anybody is equally academically qualified, regardless of what they look like, I guess I feel they should have an equal chance.
That's right. You should want the best and the brightest in your schools, Fred. You shouldn't dumb down your test scores and look the other way just to let in a handful of minorities, even if you have to get them from China or somewhere else just to fill the quotas, because that's what it is, quotas.
When they get in there too, or when they graduate, if they are able to graduate, and then the employers will not be satisfied with their academics.
Mm-hmm. But see, the whole thing's set up on quotas now. It's very unfair to a lot of people.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with you on that one.
And it's kind of like this, I got to thinking about it, and we've got it right here in this state when we let Indians go spear all these hundreds of thousands of fish every year and deplete our lakes and streams, and then it hurts our tourism in the summer. Now, what's fair about letting some Indians go in there and because they're Indians?
Well, yeah, you know how I feel about that is they have all these treaty rights, and I feel if they want to use the treaty rights well, they can go get their birch bark canoes and their handmade spears and their torches out there instead of all their modern technology produced, these 10 billion candlewatt power lights on their heads and the brand new Evinrude motors. And
yeah. Well, it's unfair, and it's depleting the streams, and a lot of the tourists, a lot of places are closing up, and then another thing which the Indians are allowed to do that the rest of us aren't in the state is to open up casinos. And I guess between the mafia and some of the Indian leaders, according to Harvey Stour, state representative from around Amory, he said there's a lot of graft and thievery and mafia influence in the casinos in this state, Fred. And supposedly the Indians are supposed to be getting all this gain out of it, but a lot of it's going right into the mafia's pocket, and a lot of it's going into crooked deals for slot machines and all kinds of stuff, Fred. But it's not, as usual, it's not trickling down to the people that need it, the people on welfare, on the reservations. And
well, some of them are paying money to their members.
If they're going to say that they have this special right to set up lotteries and stuff, then the state should have a right to go in there and tax them and cut them off welfare and some of the other things to balance it out.
I agree.
So there you have it.
all right.
I was accused of killing Indians on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't know I was that old, but somebody was accusing me of killing Indians back in the 1870s. So, well, caller, I got one question here, but Fred, we got anything left?
Go ahead.
Did we have anything left to give away?
Yeah, you got that
bumper
sticker.
Okay, we still got the bumper sticker, I guess, sir.
Right.
You sure we still got that, Fred?
Yeah.
We don't want to have people over here fighting over that now.
No.
Anyway, March 6, 1944.
Right.
You got to do this quick. We got about 1 minute.
All right.
The largest bombing raid in history takes place as American B-17 flying fortresses drop over 1.5 million pounds of TNT on what city?
I'm not sure. Berlin.
Yep, that's it.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
You bet.
Come down and get the sticker.
Well, we want to thank you once again for being on viewing our wonderful show here, and I've been your host, Chuck Lee, and this has been the Cow Report.
Close the door.
Wait.
That's all, folks.